keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's Ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Happy Friday. It is January 31st, 2014. You're here with host Lavon, joined again, very grateful, by Simone Blaze. All the way from the East Coast. She's here with us tonight. We're going to talk about more in depth about the things that are labeled indigo, crystal, and rainbow. We want to give you guys a little history and an overview of the topics. Right, Simone?
Yep. I think the reason why we chose to talk about the topic, there's a lot of information out there that you can find on the web, yet I a lot of times find myself a little bit stuck when someone asks me, so what really does it mean to be an indigo? What's the difference to crystals or rainbows? Where do these labels come from?
Exactly.
So just giving an overview, and I think from the start, I want to say I think I've reached a point where I'm beyond labels, but that
I can definitely agree to that.
But that I feel that those labels have helped a lot of people through social media to connect with each other, to share and help each other.
I gotta say that that's probably one of the best explanations I've heard.
Yeah.
When you put it so simply, yes, I agree. And as a collective, we've all kind of come to the same understanding that, you know, there are a group of us that are different, and we all have a common interest or desire. And this, you know, the internet has allowed us to connect and network and, if anything, feel a sense of ease, you know.
I wanted to say another issue that I have is when people say that they are indigos, they are different. Different meaning that not that they are better or worse. I think there's just a different way of seeing things, but that anyone has, or expressing yourself or being aware of things. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're better or worse than anybody else. So the differentiation is not like making this group of indigos, crystals, or rainbows elitist. Mm-hmm. That's another, thing that sometimes comes up.
And I like to think about it in terms of a lens. Like, I try and be objective in my life, And when I'm presented with something that's challenging, I remind myself, hey, self, you have a different lens than other people. You visualize your life sphere in a different way. It doesn't, like you said, doesn't mean I'm better. I just have another perspective.
Absolutely. So the history of the term, and I was not that familiar with it either, goes back to parapsychologist Nancy Ann Tappy, I don't know how to pronounce her name, who talked in her book, Understanding Your Life Through Color, that there were a lot of children born with indigo auras in the 1970s. And then that was followed in 1998 by another book called The Indigo Children, The New Kids Have Arrived, by Lee Carroll and Jan Tober. Mm-hmm. And from then on, there were a lot of conferences and movies around that topic. And I remember when there was a local showing of the movie The Indigo Evolution that anyone can find now on YouTube to watch for free, about indigos. And they had people like Doreen Virtue, Neil Walsh, and some other famous people on there talking about the phenomenon of indigo children and also the indigo children themselves, of how they perceive themselves. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that in 2006 and was like, wow, that's amazing. And I could relate to that, and I could also see that in some people that I knew. And I think that around that time was also another revival of that movement. I'm going to call it now a movement because, people started to being able to relate to that kind of phenomenon and the experience of just being aware of things in a different way. The indigos are often called system busters. Mm-hmm. They are not accepting authority very well. They don't like ritualistic procedures if they know that there is a better way of doing it. Somewhere I saw that they're bullshit detectors. And it's true, you can't, and I sense that in myself, I notice when people are putting on a mask, mm-hmm. and then to get past that is sometimes very hard because people are so putting the mask as their persona, and indigos can completely see beyond that. But the way they're dealing with that compared to crystals and rainbows is they're putting it right into people's faces. They're not taking any bullshit, so to say, pardon my French, but they say it to them directly. And the other thing that I found, and I've come across a lot, has been made the relationship between ADHD and indigo. And there's a lot of controversy around that. Because, yes. Indigos, of course, have an issue with the educational system and are resisting that. So I believe there's a lot of indigos that have ADHD. I am questioning that every child or every adult that has ADHD is an indigo.
I can agree. We talked on this.
We talked about that earlier.
And I think that a condition like ADHD is environmental. I research a broad array of subjects, from health to paranormal, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And ADHD is a thing that is very common in all of those different realms of information. Is we don't know where it comes from. And I think that there are a lot of different reasons for it to occur. And can there be some overlapping? Of course. You know what I mean? I'm not here to say this is correct or this is not correct. We just want to present information, right? And take it as you will.
What I also think is, there has been questioning a lot, especially among the indigo community, whether ADHD is actually a condition or if it's just an evolutionary process of kids having higher needs being more evolved and the educational system needing to adjust. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not having one opinion over the other.
When you think in terms of evolution, though, me as a person, I feel like I evolve every day. You know what I mean? And not right? That's the goal. You've gotta think that the children are the same. You know what I mean? We see it in their ability to grasp information, just being born in this age of technology. You know what I mean? They're so advanced already. And I know that they're more aware in a spiritual way than most adults.
Yes, but not all spiritually aware adults label themselves indigo either.
True, very true. So I always get caught up in words. Well, I have a love-hate relationship. I love words. I love creating them. I love sharing them. But again, it's categories, right? I don't think we could all be put into categories.
There's also, I think, what I also noticed and I found out on the web is that indigos can come across a little antisocial unless they're among themselves or with other like-minded people. Mm-hmm. So they often feel lost or misunderstood. So having that label helps them sometimes to not feel so alone.
Yes.
And connect.
Definitely. And I did a lot of reading in regards to that type of feeling that indigos have. Something because they're connected to they have a warrior spirit. Because there's, so they all come across with this sense of fierceness, and this presence. That is one aspect of my research that I think I can agree with.
It's true.
Yeah, definitely. Most times I feel like indigos are misunderstood because, like you said, they're so in your face with things. That's just how they present it.
I remember that I think from the concept with indigos, crystals, and rainbows, indigos are the trailblazers, paving the way for the crystals and indigos to come in. They're the system busters. Mm-hmm. I still need to see them to act on it, but look at the anonymous movements, or I think a lot of the people in the anonymous movement are actually indigos.
Oh, even, with people I've connected with via the Anti-Media Network, I could say a great deal of those people have those type of characteristics.
Yeah.
If you identify with the term indigo, you should start to realize the type of characteristics in the people around you. Are you all moving towards a certain thing? Like, are you anticipating something right now? I know I feel it. I know Simone feels it.
Here's another thing that I've noticed among indigos, that they see the bad in the world, but have a hard time to actually take action to change it. And realizing that knowing what's wrong, you can act on it, and that there's other people who are activists who are acting, to get a better environment, mm-hmm. to change injustice, even locally. Just small steps, small things you can change and act on it, and not think like everything is as dire as it seems. Yes, you can change the whole world, but you can do it locally, you can do it in small steps, and it has a ripple effect otherwise. We do the best we can in our own way, is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely, and it's hard to maintain that type of perspective too, especially when you are so connected. You feel like, no one understands you, and you become hardened, But you gotta see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's not only hardened, you feel misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing not how to be able to make a difference. And sometimes I think it just takes a step of connecting with different people who are on the same page, and just simple adjustment of an approach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's so many activist groups out there to do things. Also, what I suggest is, we talked about this earlier, that locally that you can go to meetup.com.
Oh, yeah, I found
see what's in your area, and you can also start your own groups that way.
So cool.
With other people.
I didn't realize right here in my own city is a little healing spot. Several little healing spots. There's a colonics clinic, retreat, literally a mile away. So I highly recommend it too. I'm going to try and go to a meetup/class this weekend, learn about herbs and Reiki. So you can search locally. It's very awesome.
I think another thing about indigos is that sometimes, because of them feeling as the whole world paradigm shifts and they feel misunderstood, a lot of them are suffering from depression and have suicidal thoughts. I've seen that a lot of times, and again, in that regard, identifying with those characteristics of indigos and being able to connect others that consider themselves the same can help them to actually get out of that spot, to feel understood, to not feel so alone.
That's a good point. You know, a lot of people suffer. I talked about this on a very early show of mine, that when you're born into a society that already defines you, and if you don't fit that mold, how do you feel? You know, and I feel like we put a lot of pressure on young people, regardless of where they're born and where they're raised, to just grow up, especially here in America. You know, we're forced to choose a career path and decide what we're going to spend our adult lives pursuing, before we realize who we are. Mm. I think there should be more emphasis on children being free when they're young, you know, not so much imposing of things. That's just a personal belief of mine. I feel like we're often directed so much, you know.
Yeah, we're set and expected to go down a certain path, and it's the society makes it very hard for us to break free and out of that pattern. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also programmed sometimes into us to fear of doing things differently.
Right, we become systematic.
Yeah. The other thing that I found about indigos is that they waver between low self-esteem and grandiosity. Would you agree on that?
Definitely. I was struggling with that. I was struggling with that this weekend, and I shared that with you. The other day, somebody asked me, "What do you do?" And I didn't know what to say. Like, I didn't know how to convey to him my purpose. And eventually I answered him, and I said, "I make things more efficient."
That's a good answer.
I didn't know what to say. And I was like, does he want my BS schooling? Like, does he want my job title? Like, does he want my passion? You know, like, how do I answer this? I didn't know how to define myself.
I think that it is a hard part to explain who we are and what we do and why we are that way. Another one was that indigos bore very easily.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I found that to be common with other indigos, especially in school. You know, the material is presented and they're like, "Oh, I got this. I understand it. Why am I going to waste my time doing it?"
Yeah, and it's so, yeah. And that's, again, about changing, the requests of some people saying that going back to the ADHD and the link to indigos, whether the educational system should be adjusting to those kids' needs as they feel like, oh, I got this, you don't need to, I don't need to deal with this anymore because I know that already.
Right. Give me something challenging, please.
Yeah. So I think we would agree that the indigos have like a special image of a better world free of harsh chemicals and food, organically grown and, locally bought with minimal processing, and the education would be more open in a way of more integrative.
Mm-hmm. We definitely see those type of movements occurring, globally.
They are slowly, but I think there's still a lot of resistance.
Well, because there's so many conglomerates involved, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's too many middlemen, but people, especially when it comes to GMOs, are becoming more aware. I remember, like 5 years ago when I started talking about GMOs in my office, it was a mission of mine. I asked every single person, and every single person that came into that office got a handout and a little lesson on what a GMO is. And now people come into my office, and ironically, they ask me, and I'm like, yes! Yes! So, like you said, small acts can turn into causes, and that's definitely something that has become a movement.
Absolutely.
If you don't know what a GMO is, shame on you.
Yeah. And the GMOs, I found out too, are banned in most European countries and other countries, but not in the U.S. So,
yes.
And that alone makes you wonder, why would they ban it in other countries? Because they feel it's unsafe, but they're allowing it in the United States.
Well, this is the same country that allows fluoridation of water. That's a toxic byproduct. You've got to start looking at the whole picture. Things aren't always what they appear on every level.
I understand that, it's toxic to fluoride the water, but I just wanted to point out that we have well water, and that fluoride actually can also occur naturally in water.
It's different.
In small amounts, but it does occur.
Yes. But, it is an element, where everything, there's a relationship in every ecosystem. And I think that we just get way too much of it.
Yeah.
Way too much. So, back to topic here. How you touched on the difference between indigo and crystal. And I according to my research, their crystal is another version of indigo. Like an indigo has transformed into a crystal, right? They go through some sort of process, according to my research. Do you agree?
Well, there's different versions of it. And like there's kids born that are crystal, and they might be, I don't know how old they are, but they are kids that are born crystal. I think from an energetic or vibrational level that indigos can develop into the stage of crystal vibration. And don't ask me how to describe that, but I talked to a lot of my friends about this, or to some of my friends, and they agree. It's just vibrationally different in a sense that they come to a point where they don't. I think the main difference is that they are seeing other people for who they truly are, and don't try to fight it anymore, but rather trying to understand, be loving and forgiving, with more, feeling more, being more connected and being able to express spontaneous, unconditional love. And it's a process to get to that point, but I do see that in a lot of indigos in a variety of my own friend circle or online.
Yeah, you see a sense of namaste, right? Recognizing the being in the other that is you. You see yourself as the same, a piece of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I see it also. I have met kids that I think are crystals, and you do notice, they are attracted to people with open hearts more, and they're also lie detectors.
Oh, yes.
They do sense this honesty, and I think they're also, but they're not, I don't know, they're just not as confrontational, I would say, as the indigos.
And I read about that there's different waves of different energy, all moving towards the greater purpose.
Another observation with indigo children is that with crystals children specifically, not so much from indigo to crystal adults, I'm talking for the children that are born as so-called crystals, that they're sometimes late talkers because they're just so used to communicate telepathically with their parents. And so, sometimes parents have been worried about why their kid is not speaking, but they still know what the needs of their kid are by telepathically communicating.
I've heard many parents tell me that they can communicate with their children that way.
Yeah.
So it's not I think it's a connection that most creatures share. And it saddens me, Simone, when I know, we're talking about this movement, and I think that it's the way we're intended. The type of communication we're talking about, the innate connection to everything, spirit,
Absolutely.
Source, everyone around you. I think that's the way we're supposed to live. Think of tribes of elephants, the way they love and they care for each other. You see that reflected in every type of family in the animal world,
I would, so when we talked earlier about the indigos being the trailblazers of, I think they're paving the way of waking and shaking everyone up and saying, listen, this is what we want, and this is the loving world that we see that would make everything so much different. Mm-hmm. And then I think the indigos are transitioning into that crystal vibration as well, and then there's these crystal kids coming, and then we talk about rainbows, which is the youngest generation, I guess. And what I wanted to say, there's not much characteristics that you find about crystals and rainbow children, and most of it you find about indigos, and most of the rainbow and crystal children, the definitions, I think, come from Doreen Virtue, winning those. And so she said about the rainbow children that as souls that they've never been born before, and that they have little karma attached to them. And the reason when you're around them, you just sense or almost see a rainbow-like energy, and that they're at their peak of their spirituality, that they're fearless of everybody because they just trust in their connection, in their intuition into the power of the divine connection. And a lot of the people say that they have the so-called Christ consciousness, and that they have a natural healing abilities, which you see in indigos and crystals a lot of times too. And they're just there to spread love and joy and healing themselves and others.
Like you said, there's limited information, and I read the same thing, and just like indigos and other crystals, that they are all headed towards the same path, and they have special gifts, so they say. healing being one of them. You know, they're very sensitive and aware. Does it shock you that, you know, this phenomenon of being intuitive is something that we even consider odd in society? Like,
I think it's scary because it's not tangible for a lot of people.
And then
it's not something you can measure.
Right.
Or sign. I mean, yes, there's actually books out there that talk about scientific experiments around intuition that, you know, are pretty interesting, but it's still not very tangible, and I think it's just scary for people.
People are afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something that they can put into their little box of thinking.
Well, it's true though. You know, when you have a specific lens, you literally are limited on the things you can view, which is why I love sharing topics with people that make them go, huh, that's weird. That's exactly the response I want you to have. Mm-hmm. It means it's working. It's good to consider other things. And something I struggle with a lot, and that I find prevalent in the response I receive when I try and talk about these things with people. It's polarized. Either people are sharing with me, you know, the ability to connect to the spirit world, or they tell me how they can feel energies, and the other hand are telling me, you know, that's work of the devil, and God doesn't like that, and you know, they tie their religion, which is often their identity, into it, and I get it. I totally get it. But how do you deal with that type of reaction, and what do you say to those people who feel like you're offending their belief in God?
I've had not a lot of direct experience very recently, but I remember, you know, a long time ago that I told a former high school friend of mine by email how I do energy healing like Reiki. And she sort of responded to me saying that she was praying for me, you know, that I know what I'm, that she wasn't sure if that was really coming from God, and, you know, just almost saying that she felt it was not from a pure source, how I'm using my healing energy. But the way I was taught is that it is, you know, it is, you know, it's not my energy.
It's the earth, the essence, right?
Absolutely, and the life force energy, God is energy and now we get completely off subject, but you know.
I just wanted to touch on that, just slightly, because I think there is an aspect to it that ties into religion. But
there's also another experience I wanted to share. I did a spiritual volunteer training ago at the local hospital, because while I was in the hospital, there was no one available that could have just meditated with me, meaning Buddhist or something. They were all Christians, and all the volunteers that I asked for, you know, they came and just wanted to pray with me, and I said, no, I don't want you to pray with me, I just want you to meditate with me. So that's why I became a spiritual volunteer there. So the training was very Christian based, and by the end of the training, it was led by a nun, and she was very open-minded, and she didn't make it very, you know, too Christian. We didn't pray every time, but I asked her, you know, I would like to teach people some general meditation techniques that they can share with the patients to help them to relax, to really just relax and let go. Mm-hmm. She got back to me. She said, well, the volunteers weren't really open to it because they thought meditation would bring them further away from God. And I was like, what?
Wow.
If anything, meditation brings you closer to God. And I found sources, you know, how when you live your life more mindfully, you are actually more aware of God, around you, and just bringing loving kindness wherever you go.
Definitely. I think that spirit is in everyone.
It's
regardless
not
of what
being
you call
Buddhist or whatever, so I found that so judgmental, and it made me angry, and that brought the indigo out in me. And I found actually some websites about Christian mindfulness and how Christian, meditation. Well, she never responded to me again. But all I'm saying is, yes, I have faced that. But I know I'm lucky in the state that I live in. I think people are very open-minded. I actually made friends with the wife of a local pastor a few months ago. I started talking to her. They said they have an open community, being welcoming community, so they're open for gays and everything. And I told her a little bit about about my belief about indigos and whatever, and she was very open about it, very open-minded, and just listening to what I had to say without judgment. And that's the kind of, people that I like to associate with, that are non-judgmental. They still keep their own beliefs, but they listen to me without judgment of where I'm coming from. And I listen to her, where she came from, her background, and, how she's associating with the church, what she likes about it, and what, why she wanted to have it more open-minded and less conservative than she grew up with.
And I think that's part of it too, is being more aware. You present to yourself these opportunities to learn certain lessons. And I find that asking questions like the ones I'm asking you, I will be presented with a teacher. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing when you are kind of living this sense of awareness. And it's so easy just to pay attention to the present moment. You feel like you have a little more control of what's going on around you.
I agree. I was wondering, are we welcoming any call-ins today?
Definitely. I was encouraging people to call. I'll give you the number here. Give me just a moment. I posted in the Facebook page on the Antimedia website. The number... Sorry about that. The number is 1-718-717-8296. So we would encourage you guys to call us. We want to hear your questions, experiences. We want to hear some refuting remarks too. I would love to hear an opposing opinion. And that's something I think we could talk about before we move on to Starseeds, is how often are people like, you're crazy?
I think sometimes my husband doesn't call me crazy. He calls me unique. But he definitely has a hard time understanding the concepts and where I come from. But as you told me today, a very interesting concept that I think he will be able to relate to was that of sacred geometry. So I'm trying to spark his interest that way.
Definitely. I found that to be something to kind of bridge the gap. And you Buddha says, if you could see the perfect, quoting here, the perfect harmony that is a flower, you'll be able to see your entire world differently. Yes. And sacred geometry is amazing. You realize that, in a sense, you live in the Matrix. The world around you is crafted by a language. The only way we can understand it is with numbers, and it's so fascinating.
I'm not into numbers, but
even if you're not into numbers, you can recognize it via imaging. Like if you start to look at pictures,
absolutely.
And flowers, and
I've seen that.
It's amazing. I love succulents. They've always been my favorite. And the more and more I learn about, the way the world is put together, and all the synchronicity that occurs. Seriously, look at a succulent. The patterns that exist within them are mind-blowing, especially when you apply sacred geometry. So that will be a fun research project for you later.
So, do you think we have a pretty good idea about indigos? If anyone has any input about indigos, rainbows, or crystals, please call. And I do not have the number. Could you give them the number again?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's 1-718-717-8296.
Okay. So one thing that I wanted to say again about those things, I think it's time to go beyond labels. It does help people to connect, but in a sense that we all have similar experiences, and it brings people together. Mm-hmm. But we are who we are. We know that we want to. We all have a similar life purpose to help other people and to make this world a better place.
Definitely.
In our own way, and each of us, wherever we are. I mean, we are on opposite ends of the coast.
I know, right? And here we are connecting, sharing similar ideas and passions. I think it's a beautiful thing. But you have to be open to it.
And to just realize that with the abilities that indigos, rainbows, and crystals have, they can change the world. They can help other people. They just need to step up to the plate and actually do something about it. Stop getting frustrated about it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Educate yourself. Connect with other like-minded people. There's also, I connected with an organization that's run out of Boulder, Colorado called, they call themselves Indigo Children, Inc., and they're starting to create a network
I'll check into that.
For indigos. And I think it's going to go beyond the label of indigos, but it's a great idea, a concept of just also creating a bigger support system for indigos. There's some people that I feel have more experience, or I don't want to say more experience, I want to say longer experience in being aware that they're indigo, crystal, or rainbow, or just with that consciousness, that are helping now people who are just starting to realize who they are and their abilities to come to terms with their abilities and self-empower them, to see their fullest potential and to actually blossom with it and trust that they can do it, that they can do something with that ability. And I think that's that's my goal, to help others. I know yours is to just help adults and teenagers and children to come to their fullest potential and understanding.
And start simply within your own family. I'm guilty of that too, not having the most loving interactions. Whatever, stress I've created for myself, it's just always try and share good words. And, words are energy, and they do have power. And what you're thinking and feeling is going to be reflected in everything, right? My favorite thing to do, and this seriously will change the course of your whole day, is say hello with intention of meaning it to everyone you encounter. You'd be amazed at how many people you'll meet.
Yes, saying hello, or then there's also this exercise of collecting smiles.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just smile at people. It's amazing, how people are reacting. Last year, about a year ago, a friend and I, we made a small local event that was we called it the Love Revolution. What we did was we wrote little slips of paper, little love notes, like, I don't know you, but I love you. You're beautiful. You have a beautiful heart, and things like that. And we just went out into town.
I can't stop smiling. I love this.
And actually I spread it throughout Facebook, the whole like a whole Facebook page, and asked other people to do that in their local area to just do it. And people did it all over.
Oh my gosh.
And so we handed out, and it was really awkward because you're approaching complete strangers and you're handing them a love note. And I just said, we're handing out love notes to people just to spread, some love around. You would not believe, like, the positive reactions we got. It was just amazing. Like, people were smiling. They were so happy. And I said, oh my God, this is so cute. What a great idea. And I said, and we even put on there, like, pass it on. So we asked people to pass it on to other people, and it was just amazing. And just the whole energy, you could feel it. And I want to do that again.
That reminds me. Soon. That reminds me of an idea I had that's basically a similar concept. In my town, it saddens me because on the same corners, I see homeless people holding signs. Mm-hmm. And I've thought, what if I made a sign that said something like, I'm full of love, would you like to have some? And I could hand out like an affirmation, or maybe, something to perpetuate other things.
One of my friends from Germany, and I've seen it around too, she made one of those signs that you can rip off some tags that said, take what you need. And on the bottom it was love, patience, healing, laughter.
I've seen those.
Compassion, hug.
Right. It's
so
a beautiful
thing.
Just
take what they needed. And she put that actually out at a bus station.
That's right.
Which I think is a great place to put it.
Random acts of kindness. Like, have you ever been in line, say, at the pastry shop, and the girl at the counter says, the person ahead of you paid for 4 people and you're one of them? Or, I've encountered so many moments like that where I'm just like, yes.
Well, I've done what I've done, when I feel really bad for homeless people when I see them, but most of the time I'm a little hesitant of just giving them money because you don't know what they're using the money for. But I have offered them when I see them, I a lot of times offer them, can I buy you something to drink? And usually, now it's the cold temperatures and they're still sitting out there. I've bought them coffees or like a hot apple cider, and they just smiled. And I still gave them like some money, but just to keep them warm. And someone suggested in another group to make a small shoebox with warm socks and a hat, and something that's actually they can actually use. A few weeks ago, I stopped at a traffic light. There was a woman saying, "I'm hungry."
Oh, yeah.
And I saw someone getting out of a car and giving her a shopping bag full of groceries.
Wow.
I was like, wow. And that just amazed me. That just gave me chills seeing that. He stepped right out and said, "Here, Merry Christmas," and just gave her a full bag of groceries. That was an amazing act of kindness.
I'm always thankful for those little moments too, especially when my outlook is slightly diminished. It's so hard to. We talked about this briefly, and I think a lot of other indigos or crystals or rainbows can identify that you kind of feel a little trapped between one place and the other. You have this place you envision in this more ideal, loving way of living, but you feel stuck in the old paradigm. But the only way to get unstuck is to change it for you.
Absolutely.
That's the part that's screwy about it. Is like you said, you gotta make action.
And I know that there are certain areas, in the world, but also in the U.S., where it's harder to be an indigo because there's areas where people are a little bit more stuck in the old paradigm than in other areas, you know. So, especially in those areas, you can change it by being, you know, this kind of person of just being the loving self and showing kindness in a way of being forgiving and seeing how to change, how you can change it. Educating people about things such as GMOs or pollution in your local area, but not in a respectful way, so that they actually listen and don't feel like you're attacking them.
Right.
There are a few.
And I've learned a lesson with that too. Is you gotta have a specific approach to people when presenting them with new information, because a lot of times people identify their self with what they know.
Absolutely.
You know, they identify themselves with their degree or, you know, their whatever label they have attained. And I think it's changed. You don't have to go to college to have this education and wisdom base, you know.
I think it's not even like knowledge or like degree based, but I see that it's a belief system that they created for themselves, be it science, be it religion,
right,
or even diet.
Yes, or lifestyle, exactly. Whatever.
Lifestyle, you know, and some people get so attached to their own lifestyle that they have a really hard time accepting that other people are not necessarily able or willing to change their lifestyles. Or
their lens.
Or do it gradually. I read a really interesting book. It's The 5 Levels of Attachment by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he's talking about that, the 5 levels of how hard are you really attached to what your belief system. And, you know, there's the way where you can still come back to your authentic self, where you can put your mask aside and just says, okay, this is me. This is vulnerable me. I'm listening to you. I understand you have a different belief system, and I'm listening to you. And being open to that, to just, you know, even if it's not the right, you know, even if it's not what we believe is right, but just listening and being strong in your own belief system, but also understanding that someone else comes from a different aspect. And sometimes we have to adjust it, you know. We're realizing, oh, I might have been wrong for all these years.
Right. And that's hard though, and you know, I think that has a lot to do with the and I've dealt with this. I'm still dealing with this, is the separation of ego, and that's been my most recent lesson. And for personally, is what am I? What is my ego? How, you know, where do I fall in between the two? It's very revealing when you open that box in your mind, and you literally, you know, you're standing in a mirror in your mind, and you're analyzing every aspect that is you and how it got there. It is profound in the way that you show it to yourself, the layers that you reveal in the very systematic manner itself is a lesson. The mind is such a complex thing. You know, I feel saddened for people, because I feel like there's such a disconnection. And, you know, we talked about labels, and you think of the flower children, you know, the hippies, you know, they're speaking of the same thing you and I are speaking of. They just use different words.
We are the new world hippies.
Right? We're the new world hippies. We got technology.
We just created a new label in our video show. We're going beyond labels, we're creating a new one.
New labels. That's the way to get rid of labels, is refute them and then make your own.
Exactly. I think you're right. They had the same concept, and in a different way. They were I think that there's a lot of indigo aspects were in them as well, in a sense, if you think about it. And here we are, but I also sense there is a shift to just on a social level, just if it was before more on a bigger level, now I think it goes down to the nuclear level of family and the smaller community too, that there's just shifts in consciousness, and you see just people being more aware or changing, as you said at the beginning, how they view things through a different lens, like they're adjusting their perspectives.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the people realizing the things that hold their attention are just an agenda. You know what I mean? And I speak in terms of like entertainment. That's a big way that people spend their time. You know, sports, movies, television, you know, radio, all forms of media, even this, you know, it's, what is the agenda? We speak of love and open-mindedness, you know. Always think of what is the agenda when you hear something.
That's a good point. And I wonder a lot of times how those things that we spend on media are actually pretty mind-numbing and keeping us from going within and changing our perspective. Although in many ways it can help, but sometimes, you know, being able to discern of what is actually broadening our view and what is narrowing it down or trying to change it to something that's not right. So learning to discern, I guess.
Right. And I'm one of my biggest teachers in life, even though I've never met him, is Nikola Tesla. And he says, if you think of the world in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, your entire perspective would alter. And, you know, that's how I perceive everything, is via energy. And I encourage you to try on that lens just for a few hours. You know, think of some things and be amazed, because it all comes back to energy.
We're all energy.
We're all energy, exactly.
And everything is energy. Nothing is really solid. It's how we perceive the reality as it appears to us.
And I think that's something we should talk about next time, is the different realms. I've heard a lot throughout the research, or read a lot throughout research, is that this is, you know, physical is third dimension, and that people are shifting into different frequencies, you know, higher levels of consciousness, and that eventually will shift into this other dimension. You know, ultimately, do you agree that fifth is the one we want to attain? Is that what you've read? What's your opinion on that?
I am not I mean, I don't know that there's, you know, I wonder if there's actually limited dimensions. Do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
If there's not more than 5.
See, I can't wrap my mind around only 5.
See me, I mean, I'm just, you know, theorizing now. But I think that there's, what if there's parallel dimensions? Or even, you know, other dimensions outside the universe that we're not aware of. But I think there's a very interesting YouTube video that was a little bit overwhelming to me by Teal Scott about talking about dimensions. And I think I need to watch that again. But she was talking about all these different levels, and at some point I just couldn't follow it anymore. But
maybe you weren't ready.
Maybe I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But I think it was about the Akashic records and beyond. And I just feel it's, the end of the show.
Thank you, guys. Sending you love and light.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.